In this video, we're going to be taking a look at New World Aeternum, which launches today on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Before I tell you all about New World Aeternum, however, a big shout out to Amazon Games for sponsoring this video. If you guys like what you see in this video and you want to pick up the game, be sure to use the link below to support our channel. So what is New World Aeternum and how is it different from New World? New World Aeternum is essentially a culmination of all patches, content expansions, and updates for New World, along with new content that is coming to the game on October 15th that has not yet before been played by players. And another thing that New World Aeternum has is it has more of a focus on the solo and co-oping experience than was previously available. And when you look at what they have done, they've kind of revamped that questing process to include cutscenes and cinematics that sort of better explain what's happening. I think this is maybe one of the flaws of New World when it launched, was we didn't really know why we were there and what we were doing very well. But this has been better explained, and it kind of gives you a bit more of a runway before you get into activities with other players to really understand what's going on in the world and kind of get your bearings a bit more before you're just kind of thrust into everything. And New World Aeternum is the first time that you'll be able to play on console, and there are not a lot of games like this on console. I think there are a lot of people out there that are really looking forward to playing this game on console. I myself actually got to play the open beta for it on PlayStation 5 a little ways back, and let me tell you, it absolutely played fantastic on console. You know, in a day and age where performance is a huge issue on any platform really, but particularly console these days, I was pleasantly surprised to see that the game played really, really smoothly on console, and I was probably getting over 60 FPS, or at least 60 FPS, the entire time I was playing. I don't think it dropped below that at all at one point. So the game plays really, really well. And on top of that, this was my first time playing with controller and really like trying to figure out how to play New World Aeternum with a controller, because previously I had played on PC with, you know, mouse and keyboard like everybody did pretty much. I imagine there were some people that used controller back then. Playing on controller felt really, really good. The controls felt natural. You don't have a ton of skills to use at once, so there's not like, you know, you're not trying to remember like 1,000 button mappings or anything like that. It was an easy rotation of skills. Ranged combat felt good. Melee combat felt good. Everything was smooth because of the good frame rate. And honestly, I was just pleasantly surprised how well it played on console. And I absolutely think that they did a fantastic job here. And something that I really loved while checking out that open beta as well is that I noticed that, you know, in the chat on the left side of the screen, which was popping, by the way, there were lots of people playing the open beta. I don't know if all those people are going to buy the game or not, but there were a lot of people playing the beta, checking it out to see if it's something they would enjoy. But something you got to see on the left-hand side was the chat, and you could see all the people talking, and it would show the platform they were talking from, because New World Aeternum has cross-play enabled, so you can play with people on PC or Xbox or PlayStation no matter which platform that you're playing on, and this should ensure that you have, you know, tons of people to play with all the time. You're not going to be wondering, like, where's the player base in a month? Hopefully there's still a strong player base because of that cross-play, and I know that's always a concern for people. And something that I noticed during the open beta that I played as well is that they've added a lock-on feature to the game that makes the game feel more like an ARPG than it previously was. You know, you have that kind of like Souls-like lock-on that you kind of expect from games of that type is now in the game. And it kind of changes the way that New World Aeternum plays. Because previously with like projectile weapons and things like that, you had to manually aim them. And you still can manually aim them. And you may want to, depending on what you're facing. But also now, because there's a lock-on, it changes the way you fight in combat, not only from a ranged perspective, but from a melee perspective. From a melee perspective, it just felt like your hits were connecting more, like because your camera was focusing on the targets you were fighting a bit more, and I really enjoyed that. But from a ranged perspective, ranged was much easier to play because you could select, you know, which target you want to lock onto and just hit them with ranged attacks pretty reliably. And it should change the way things play in the game. For instance, PvP should be different, because if you can lock onto a player with a bow, then, you know, players are going to have to come up with a strategy to combat that. If you're using a musket, for instance, and you're like ranging down players from far, you'll still probably have to manually aim, because when you're really, really far away, by the time, you know, the projectile lands there, it's probably not going to be exactly where that player still was, because the projectile has some travel time. So there are still going to be instances where you might manually aim, but I do think the addition of a lock-on will make things easier for players, but should fundamentally change the way the game plays in general. And having played that open beta on PlayStation 5 for about 10 to 15 hours, I can tell you that I just felt kind of at home when I was playing. I kind of gradually remembered things that I had forgotten, and I was like, oh yeah, this is Everfall, and this is Windsward, and like these locations were familiar to me, and it was kind of all coming back to me. I was like, oh yeah, I need to craft this and do that and go out and find ore, and I remember where this ore was, and it felt really good. And I think one of the things that's really special about New World Aeternum is the leveling experience. This game has a fantastic leveling experience. I think it's arguably, you know, probably the best or one of the best leveling experience of similar games out there. A lot of these types of games that people play, they focus on the end game and what's there available to do once you're done leveling, and they hate leveling and they don't want to level and they just want to level quickly and get to end game. But I feel like New World Aeternum is exactly the opposite. Like the beginning part of the game is the best. The leveling experience is the best part. I absolutely love that. And I think one of the fundamental reasons that leveling is so much fun in New World Aeternum is because of the game's crafting system. New World Aeternum has a really interesting crafting system that really rewards the player for investing time and effort into crafting. A lot of the best in-slot gear you can get is from crafting, so players spending the time to go gather resources and farm resources and craft gear, sell it to get more materials, and going out and finding rare nodes and spending their valuable time doing it are really rewarded for that. And it's something that you can do at your own pace. You can log in and just do it for a couple hours by yourself, or you can get a couple friends and go farm some trees or some ore, do whatever you want. And it's a really cathartic activity. And as a gamer who's been around for quite a while now, I really enjoy the cathartic nature of the crafting system and the exploration in New World. You can really get lost in the landscape, just finding resources out there and finding cool bosses that have unique drops. Like, there is a lot of really fun to be had there. I'm looking for that in games these days. You know, there was a day and age where I would get amped up playing Call of Duty or something, or a Battlefield, but now it's like I want something a bit more relaxing, and it's a lot of fun to do in New World, and I think there are players out there like me that can just kind of enjoy that for what it is. And of course, on the flip side of that, there's the PvP, and I have been known to dabble in PvP in New World Aeternum a bit. I really love low-level PvP in this game before, like, all the territories have been claimed and, you know, stuff gets into these big battles. There is a lot of fun to be had in the PvP of New World Aeternum because of the nature of it. And there are many PvP activities you can do in New World if you want. I have my favorite, which we'll go into in a minute, but there's like a 3v3 arena. You can do like large-scale PvP in the sieges, and you can do open world PvP, and there are other things. And one of the things that's really great too is that there's a new activity finder that allows you to party up for these activities. So if you don't know anyone and you're brand new to the game and you want to like get involved in some of these activities, whether they're PvP or PvE, you can use the activity finder to find a group to get people, and maybe you'll make friends that way and then find groups of people to continue playing with. But it's a great way to get people into the group activities without having to know a lot of people. And it's definitely needed in a lot of games, and this is one that was sorely needed in, and I'm glad to see that it is there now. But my favorite part of PvP in New World Aeternum, and maybe even my favorite part of the game in general, is the open world nature of PvP. In order to siege a town that some faction controls in the game, you have to sort of do these PvE quests in a region that a faction controls. And each quest you complete fills a little bit of progress towards a bar, and when that bar completes, you can then do a siege. Well, the more people from your faction that do it, the faster it fills. And these quests are kind of similar everywhere you go. So you kind of know what you're doing every time. And as a defender, like, you're not going to just let people do that. So what you do is you go out on the landscape with your faction and your friends, and you stop them out on the landscape. But since you know what routes they're going to take, you learn this after playing a while, you can lie in wait and ambush them and charge them and shoot them from behind, or get them when they're in a river and they can't move very well and just gun them down. And it is so much fun to plan and sneak, because you can crawl in the game, you can crouch, you can hide in bushes, lie in wait, get the drop on people. And it is just really, really fun to do, particularly at low levels where like everyone hasn't quite figured everything out yet, and no one has like super optimal gear and made it everything. And it is one of the biggest reasons that I recommend, if you're going to pick up New World Aeternum, that you do it and you play it at launch. It's easily the best part of the game. It's so much fun before everyone has control of all the territories. You know, when New World originally launched in 2021, it was some of the most fun I had. For 2 or 3 weeks, I was playing like 12, 16 hours a day. I had so much fun playing that game, just doing like little PvP battles and gathering resources and upping my crafting and hanging out with people. It was a ton of fun, and I feel like it's a really unique experience that I think is worth it, in my opinion, when I look back at the amount of game time I got out of it. I didn't play like too much longer, like I probably played like a month and then I kind of stopped playing, kind of petered out. But even for that amount of time, I think it was easily worth the money that I spent, and I would have definitely do it again. Knowing what I know now about the game, I definitely would do it again if I had the opportunity, because it was just that much fun. And the last thing I'll say before wrapping up this video is that during the beta, I was co-oping with Vex, and she'd never played New World Aeternum before, and I had a lot of experience. We had two different complete, levels of game time in this game, and she had a ton of fun playing. She wanted to keep playing. The beta wasn't long enough. We had other work to do, and we couldn't spend as much time playing as we wanted. She wanted to keep playing, and we were like, oh, how can we find time in October to play, even though we have all these other games coming out? Like, we have to find some time to play this. And as someone who played many, many hours before, I wanted to keep playing too. I wanted to keep playing the game. So two completely different people, a returning player, a brand new player, we both wanted to keep playing it. Scratch that itch that made you want to stay up all night and play. And I think that's a really, really good sign for this game. So that wraps up our video on New World Aeternum. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, big shout out to Amazon Games for sponsoring this video. If you guys are going to pick up the game, you can use our link to help support the channel. I know there are some console players out there that are probably itching to play this. I will probably be playing on PS5 at the launch of the game, just because I had so much fun during the beta. I had this, like, I don't want to play too much and then burn myself out, so I kind of tried to limit it, but I'm really, really looking forward to playing more and, jumping some people that are, doing some PvP out there. Can't wait to do some of that. And we might have some more New World videos coming out soon, too, as well. Some guides for new players, we'll see. So let me know what you guys think. What do you make of New World Aeternum? Are you going to be picking it up? Let me know in the comments below.